All right, so for those of you who are not able to be in the classroom today, as we go through the next assignment, you all received an email of a pixelated master's painting. Reason we did this is because the most important thing, in my opinion, for painting is color matching. We all want to be able to paint like a master can, but first we have to learn to match the colors. So if I've reduced what the image is into just these colors, we'll try to match them. But I left a little bit on the edge if you want to practice and try to show off. Now the great thing about this is because of this pixelation, anywhere where we are not painting our best, because we're just not there yet, will be forgiven because we will think it's part of this device right here. So you have your substrate and you've drawn it on there. Okay, I'm using the canvas pad because that's what I have available. And I made sure my grid was on there as best I could. I don't need a lot of detail because I'm going to paint on top of this. Now we could do what we did last time and we could put a wash on this first so we don't have any little white pieces showing through, or we could just start painting. So I'm going to start with this square right here. And what that means is I take my palette knife and I think, what color is closest to that? So I think it's kind of a pinkish brown. So I'm going to start with a little alizarin crimson. And I happen to have a couple of colors you don't. So here's a raw sienna. Mix those two together. It's way too bright. I might lighten it up a little bit and see what happens with that. So I'm going to add a little white to it. And it's still too pink. So I think of, okay, red. What is the opposite of red? Well, green. Green will neutralize it. So I'm going to take a tiny dot of green, not a big dot, but just enough to neutralize the red. You know the opposites by looking at a color wheel. So red's opposite is green, blue's opposite is orange. Okay, that's pretty close. Let's add a little more white to it and see what we get with that. I close one eye and I look at it, that is almost exactly that color. Now I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so I'm going to orange it up a little bit by adding just a little tiny dot of yellow. See what that does. I would say that's a pretty close match. So then I would take my brush, and in this case I'm going to use a very tiny one because I'm working on a very small painting here. And if you needed some medium, I have some that I've mixed up, but you could also just use some of your solvent if it needs to be just a little bit thinner. And I use my palette knife as a miniature palette. So then I come over here and I paint it as carefully as I can. And that's the assignment. We are matching colors. The grid is the more important part for me, but I would like you to try to show off when painting the exterior of that grid. Go in a couple of different directions here to kind of make sure that we don't have little white spots showing through, or start off with a thin veil like we did on the last one to hide all those little white pieces. Now, if I don't get this 100% perfect, or if it goes over the lines, the next square I do can overlap that and make it clean. But I do not want my substrate to show through. I want what people look at to be 100% paint. All right, one square done. So now I'm going to clean my brush off. If I want to save this, if I think it's similar to something like that, and scrape it off onto my palette and then clean it off, because I'm going to start again. I'm going to go to this next one here, which is pretty similar. So let's just take a look at it. Oh, it needs a lot more white. needs a little bit more brown, so I'm going to put a little bit of the burnt umber in this one. And don't worry, you're going to mess up and you're going to make ugly colors. Little yellow ochre to warm that up a little bit. Almost a perfect match again. But in case you're curious, this is exactly how I do my own paintings. I sit around and just match colors. So if you can sit around and do this to the point where you can mix a color as quickly as I just did and it be this close to perfect, then you can do whatever you want. You don't have to be able to draw well to be able to paint well. Some people really like to draw well because they want to master reality. But as long as you've got good color and a good composition, people will still accept what you're doing. If you want to have more realistic paintings, then you need to spend a lot of time with your sketchbook practicing. Draw, draw, draw. I can't stress that enough. If you want your stuff to look like a photograph, then you need to spend a lot of time outside of class drawing so that you can master reality. If this is your chosen field, then you need to be top of your field, which means you should be working on this so much more than you are. Video games, hanging out with friends, all those things are fun, but quite honestly, being able to paint something that's so realistic that people are wowed is so much more rewarding for me. So I gave up playing in a band, I gave up a lot of different things because this is what I wanted, and I've got it now. So now, there's 2 colors for me. I'm gonna keep going. Now it's all up to you. So I'll see you in class next time.